Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Theo's Coffee Break, where we talk about what's going on in our world while getting to know each other on a more personal level. I'm your host, Theo, and for today's episode on Theo's Coffee Break, it's going to be extra special because we're diving into the theme of community, what it means to show up, to hold space, and to care for one another in a world that can often feel divided. Joining me today is Schoepf, a part-time pastor serving a small congregation, but this is also someone whose reach and wisdom go far beyond the walls of the church. Ellen's passions and interests stretch across ministry, music, education, and social justice. And today, we're going to explore how all of these threads weave together into the fabric of community. Ellen, welcome to the show. I am so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Theo. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in. Ellen, could you tell us a little bit about your journey and how did you find yourself called to ministry and what does that mean to you today?
Well, when I was growing up, when I was in high school, I felt a sense of call to ministry. But at that point in time, the church, the denomination of which I'm a part, the Lutheran Church, was just beginning to ordain women. And I didn't have a real good sense of self at the time. And so I didn't really see that as a possibility for me in my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I chose a different route. I love music. I majored in organ performance, and I minored in piano performance, and did a lot of work in the field of music. I did a lot of performing. I worked with several choral groups, which were high school groups as well as semi-professional groups. I worked with semi-professional theater groups with Cherry County Playhouse in Muskegon at that time. I was the education director for the West Shore Symphony for a few years, which I absolutely loved, and I was principal keyboard player for the symphony as well.
Incredible.
And I was director of music in several area churches in the Muskegon area at different points in time. And throughout that time, that sense of call within me was still there.
Wow.
And as my life changed and I moved out of state, I finally decided to follow that dream. At the age of 50, I went back to school.
Wow.
To seminary, a 4-year program that I entered into to get my Master's of Divinity degree. And I was finally ordained in 2012 and took a call first to a church in Portland, Maine, St. Ansgar Lutheran Church. I was so fortunate with that call. I was the assistant pastor, and my call there was to do the work of social justice, to do education work with the kids, and to do music, because I did most of the playing for the services and worked with the choir. However, the senior pastor was also a musician and organist, so we did some sharing of that job, and when I would preach and preside, he played the organ.
How cool.
And we went back and forth on that venture, sharing that part of the position at times, and it was wonderful. I loved working with him. And then when my husband was able to retire, we decided to move back to West Michigan, where most of our family was, most of our kids, grandkids, where they were living and still are. And I took a call to Okemos, a church in Okemos, a Faith Lutheran Church in Okemos, where I served for 8 years. And it was a wonderful experience. I just love the people there. And then I reached the point a couple years ago where I could retire from full-time ministry. So we moved back to the Muskegon area where I grew up. And I took a part-time call at a church in Fruitport, Edgewood Lutheran Church. And I'm getting back into now doing some music, doing some performing and playing again, which is wonderful. I'm really enjoying it.
That is such a beautiful and exciting tapestry of your life. So a couple of quick questions before we jump into the next one is that, where did you get your education from? What schools did you attend?
I went to Hope College. At first, I went to Muskegon Community College, and then I attended Hope College. And I ultimately did 2 years of study in organ performance with Dr. Marilyn Mason at the University of Michigan.
University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Go Spartans.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I traveled back and forth to Ann Arbor to study with Marilyn Mason for organ lessons. And it was such an enriching experience. I learned so much from her. I originally studied organ with Troy Carpenter in Muskegon and then with Roger Davis at Hope College.
Oh, wow.
And I did some study with Hugh Lewis, too, at Hope College. But studying with Marilyn Mason was just priceless.
Yeah. So for anyone that would like to learn more or possibly could be interested in being a minister, you mentioned that you got a master's in divinity. What does that process look like? Like, what should be at least on the back of your mind when you're approaching this kind of career or passion?
I think you really need to feel a sense of call within you.
What does that sound like or look like?
A desire to really live into a way in which you can proclaim the good news of the gospel.
Sure.
And also know and experience a sense of call within the community. Because it's not just about what's within you. It's something that the community senses and sees within you as well. And there is a call that comes and is made known in many ways through the people within the community.
Wow.
And then when I went back to school, it was a 4-year program. I studied 2 years at Trinity Lutheran Seminary in Columbus, Ohio. Then I did 1 year of internship at Calvary Lutheran Church in Richland Hills, Texas, which is a suburb of Fort Worth. And then I went back and did my final year at Trinity Seminary in Columbus.
Yeah, just you mentioning that, it sounds like you have traveled a lot. Just knowing you from before this interview, at one point you were even in Maine.
Yeah.
And was that for also seminary or?
No, we went to Maine. My husband's job took us to Maine.
Okay. Okay. So that's separate. Wow. That is just incredible. So you mentioned that you have to have this sense of calling where it's like spreading good news to the community. So when you think about community, what does that word stir up for you personally?
Community for me is so important. In regard to the church, community is the beloved community that Martin Luther King talked about. That beloved community takes shape and form around the gospel word.
Wow,
that we hear and that we experience in the weekly meal that we have within the context of our service and the work that we do. In terms of the greater community, I would say it is all about loving our neighbor as ourself. I think within our present cultural context, I see so much of a focus on individualism and individual rights. And I see that to the point where many times it almost is toxic and malignant. And true community is the opposite of that. America has become so focused on individualism, and I understand that. I see how it developed, and yet that does not really help to create true community, and we need community to exist. Community is a vital aspect of being human.
That's a really beautiful,
And if we are so individualistic in our thinking, we really struggle to relate with one another and accept one another as they are.
Is there a specific example you can share with us of what this individualistic thinking and action looks like?
I think we saw a lot of that during COVID.
Interesting.
When people became so individualistic and focused on their rights and what they thought they should be able to do alone, even to the point of not getting the COVID vaccine, and thinking that they could live separate and experience that without having an obligation to what it means to be in relationship with other people. That individualism that we saw during COVID, I found to be toxic.
Yeah.
And it was deadly. And it can be deadly. And community and caring for the other is vital.
Yeah.
Caring for the other, caring for your neighbor, and from my perspective, loving your neighbor as yourself is what helps to create healthy community.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that's coming through for me from what you're saying is that community is taking action.
Yes.
In being there for each other.
Yes.
Being present.
Absolutely.
And thinking outside of yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is absolutely beautiful. So, next question would be, you serve a small congregation. What unique beauty or challenges have you found in working within a smaller faith community?
There are many challenges. The community I serve, it's turning, this year we're celebrating its 50th anniversary.
50th?
Yeah.
Wow.
But the community itself is so small, and everybody, for the most part, everybody is a senior citizen. There's one family where there are a few it's a younger family, but otherwise everybody's a senior citizen. Everybody's in their 70s or 80s. And we have around 25 present on Sunday morning for worship.
Yeah.
Because of the age of the majority of the people in the congregation, it makes it hard to do a lot of things that I would like to see us do because they don't have the energy to do it, or we don't have the numbers of people to do it either.
Yeah.
And so that's a real challenge. And because of that, I'm working on trying to develop opportunities that are specifically focused for senior citizens, on senior citizens.
Yeah.
The joy that I find in serving such a small congregation is the community itself, the people. The people are so dedicated and so full of love and so full of grace and so committed to that small community and what we can do as a group to make life better for others in the greater community.
Yeah.
That provides a great sense of joy.
Yeah. A challenge that you just mentioned, I'd like to come back to for a moment. the majority is senior citizens. You're lacking younger families.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an idea of where that disconnect is coming from to why these younger families are not attending church?
I've tried to figure some of that out, and I don't have all the answers. Across the board, in the major denominations, attendance is just declining.
Okay.
And fewer young people are coming to church. In our community, I think many of the younger people are going to faith communities where there are a lot of activities for kids.
Okay.
And for young people. We can't provide that at this point in time.
Yeah.
We tried to do a vacation Bible school last year, and we had 12 kids come, and they were from the greater community, but it was extremely taxing on our members because they're all elderly.
Yeah.
And as volunteers, it was hard on them.
Yeah.
And so I think the churches where younger people are going are churches where there's a focus on activities and experiences for kids.
Okay.
And younger people, but also I think many of them are going to non-denominational churches. And I'm pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the ELCA, which is the only Lutheran denomination that ordains women. And we have a focus that is very liberal leaning. We are very welcoming to all kinds of people. We are welcoming to people who a diverse group of people, and I think that's how we're supposed to live.
Yeah.
And also we follow a liturgical format that's very traditional, and that might be something that some younger people don't appreciate as much. People who've been part of the Lutheran Church for a long time find great comfort in that liturgical format because the form itself goes back 2,000 years,
Wow.
plus 2,000 years, the order of worship that we use. It's very contemporary in music styles sometimes. It's very contemporary in language, but the order of worship itself, beginning with something like confession and forgiveness or thanksgiving for baptism, and then moving into an opening hymn, and then the scripture readings, the sermon, the prayers of the day, and then the great thanksgiving and the meal and the benediction. That is an order of worship that has been part of the Christian church since the very early church.
Wow.
And so we follow that order. And there are probably people who like something that is a form that is more free. And I myself find great comfort in that ancient order.
In just the way you described it sounds like it's a beautiful way to preserve a rich history.
It is.
Yeah, those kind of traditions.
Yeah, and there's a ritual which I find deeply meaningful.
Yeah.
I think we need ritual.
Yes.
And it's about something that is so much bigger than ourselves. We're part of we're part of a tradition that goes so far back. It's something about something. It's so much bigger than us.
Yes.
It's the community of saints, past, present, and future.
Yes. Community, once again. Wow. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I've never thought about it in that kind of context. That structure, the tradition, the history that we are preserving. So how do you see music and music education playing a role in strengthening or healing community bonds?
Music is a universal language. We may not all speak the same language, but in music we experience the same language.
That's beautiful, yeah.
And music, it's scientific research shows this, that music education with children does so much for their learning experience. It helps them understand rhythms. It helps them improve in reading. It helps them improve in understanding science. Music just really does something to the brain and the learning ability of children. Rhythm and movement are so vital for children, and I think there's a deep connection between rhythm and reading.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And when children are able to experience and know rhythm, I think they start to read better. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And music provides a form of expression through which we can speak, in a sense, something that comes from the deepest part of our being.
Yeah.
We can't always put that into words, but we can express that through music. And I think having that ability and giving people that ability and that gift is so healthy and vital for our minds, our emotions, and also for community.
Yeah. You know, and just you saying that, immediately I thought of how music has always held space for me. In times that I felt misunderstood or silenced, music was like, I'm listening and I understand. And it helps with my identity and finding my voice.
Absolutely, yeah. In challenging times in my life, I've been able to, through my playing, express the stuff that was in the deepest part of my being that I could not put into words.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's also interesting. You said that music can help with reading.
Yeah. And
then something came to me. It's like, you know what? There is a certain kind of rhythm to reading, like keeping pace.
There is.
Yeah. That is so, so cool. So we're just kind of segue a little bit. But as someone who has engaged with social justice, how do you navigate the intersection between faith, activism, and caring for others?
Caring for others requires action. It requires the work of social justice.
Yeah.
I have experienced this so many times. Within our culture, those who are at the fringes, the most vulnerable, the least of those among us, are the ones that experience so much hurt. My faith calls me to love those people, and love is not just a feeling.
Yes.
Love is an action. It's a way of living, a way of doing, and love means working for justice. For the least of these, the least of those among us.
Yeah.
Love requires me to do that. I can't escape that. It requires me to be actively working for justice.
I love that. Yeah, that deep sense of community and showing up and representing to make sure that everyone feels seen and to know that someone does care.
Yes. And to make life better for others.
Absolutely.
It's about restorative justice.
Restorative, yes.
Yes.
I love that. So, have you ever witnessed a moment in your ministry or life where a community came together in a way that deeply moved you?
More than once.
Could you at least share one?
Yeah. When I served at Faith Lutheran Church in Okemos, I started that call in 2015, and in 2017, the person who worked for Samaritas, which was also Lutheran Social Services, but they took the name Samaritas, the person who worked overseeing refugees in our area who had come as undocumented minors called me, and she was quite upset because new policies that were implemented by the government at that time were going to make it impossible for Samaritas to continue serving these young people once they turned 18.
Really?
These young people would be put out on the streets wearing ankle bracelets and monitors.
Oh my gosh.
Or they would be sent back to detention centers and then deported to their home country, where for many of them that would mean death.
Oh my gosh.
And I, after meeting with her, my soul would not let me rest.
Yeah.
And so we met with other area clergy and worked with the congregation I was serving, Faith Lutheran Church. And we, over time, developed what has become known as Michigan Refugee Hope. We turned our old parsonage into a house to welcome these young people when they turned 18, if they had not yet received all their documentation.
Sure. Yeah.
And we began taking them in. And what we did was provide for them what was needed. We helped them get through school, finish school, get all their documentation, working with the attorneys, and helping them to get driver's license and reach a point where they could live on their own in society. We helped many of them get jobs. Some of them went on to higher education. In fact, I'm so proud one of them just graduated from the University of Michigan.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so many young people have gone through that program. And it was all about community. It was all about that faith community coming together to work as a community to care for these young people and help them live into a life of hope and meaning and freedom and wholeness. And that ministry was life-changing.
Life-changing on so many levels. You changed many people's futures.
Well, it wasn't just me. It was other clergy that were part of the group, that are still part of the group and part of the board of directors, and that faith community that I served.
Yes. Community action and just, wow, life-changing. So what's one lesson or insight about community you wish more people understood or practiced in daily life?
The one thing I wish people would understand, for a Christian, every person I meet, I see the face of Christ in that person. And that means I am called to love that person, accept that person as they are, where they are, as I love Christ. The love of Christ, yes. And failing to do that denies that person identity.
Wow, that's powerful,
I truly believe people so desperately need to know they are accepted and they are loved as they are. God loves them as they are.
Yes.
That is the most important word people need to hear. And when people experience that kind of love and grace, it changes them.
Yes.
And they become a new person. And live into a sense of wholeness. And that message needs to desperately be heard by so many people.
I do love thy neighbor as yourself. It's so easy to say, And I can't really think of a single person who has not heard that before, but yet it's still one of the most difficult things to do.
Love is not easy.
It's not.
Love is not easy. And like I said before, love is not a feeling.
Yeah.
It's not this fuzzy, warm feeling so many people think it is. Love is action.
Yes.
Love is action, and love is about the way we live in relationship to other people.
Yes.
It's about accepting things that are not currently the kinds of things we hear about accepting in society, but accepting and loving diversity.
Yes.
And looking for ways to help people to truly become equal.
Yeah.
And looking for ways to include others.
Yes.
And that's what the beloved community is.
Yes. Courage.
Yes.
I would say courage is a huge part of what you just said as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, and sometimes we get in our own ways and we think like, do I really think that I could make that kind of difference? And then we don't do it.
Yeah, we don't do it. But what is the call?
Right.
What is the call? There's always something we can do to make a difference.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's just by having a conversation with somebody and letting that person know they're loved and accepted.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just really very simple.
Yeah. Bringing back the value of how one conversation could change someone's life.
Yes.
Yes. So how has your own sense of belonging shifted over the years? Have there been times you struggled to find your own place or voice?
Oh, many times. Like I said, when I graduated from high school, I didn't have a very good sense of self.
Interesting. Really?
Yeah, and I struggled to find my voice for years. In fact, I still struggle at times to find my voice.
Yeah.
But I don't think I really found that voice until I entered seminary and found myself experiencing a new freedom within me, a freedom to finally answer that call.
Really?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit more about what that shift may have looked or felt like? So maybe someone out there who's looking for their own voice would understand?
Well, when I entered seminary, I lived at the seminary for 2 years. I truly ate, breathed, slept. Everything about me was focused on the learning, the learning experience and the study and being taken to new places, not geographically, but within my mind and heart and being.
Yeah.
And that world opening up before me.
Yeah.
And so that was like a new sense of freedom, and it was living into that identity that was calling me for so many years.
That's really, really beautiful, because I feel like I've been going through that as well. But I want to quick jump back just a moment. Between that time when you left high school to that moment of seminary or pursuing your education, there was a time span there where you just did not have that sense of self.
No, I didn't.
So what were some of the actions or some of the moments in your life that kept you going so you did not give up on finding that voice and sense of self?
Community.
Interesting.
Other people.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm living in my second marriage. My first marriage was struggling.
Yeah.
Was a struggle.
Yeah.
It was difficult. We got divorced after 23 years of marriage. And for me, that was living into a new sense of freedom. Because when my first husband and I did get married, I didn't have a good sense of self, and I think I ran into that marriage. And so community was vital for me during all those years. Being part of community was so important. Community held me.
Okay.
Community cared for me. Community gave me life.
Was this community within the church or was it outside of the church?
It was both.
It was both.
The
It was a mix.
community of faith.
Okay.
But it was also the community of musicians. It was the community of the arts.
Yeah.
It was the community in which I was living in regard to the things that I did. The arts in particular were so important. And I think for anybody who has been involved in working in the arts, you find a very loving community. I did a lot of theater. I worked with Cherry County Playhouse, which was in Muskegon at that time. And when you work with theater groups, theater, as you're working on any production, a new community is created with each production.
Yeah.
And that community that you see, it's such a loving community always.
It is. Yeah.
It's an experience I wish everybody would have an opportunity to have. And so all these different various communities that were part of my life in different ways really held me and carried me through, especially the faith community.
Yeah.
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 Especially the faith community.
I really love that. I really love that so much because, just kind of tying it back to the beginning is that we're in such an individualistic and we're forgetting that community is also collaboration. And collaboration allows us to not just think bigger, but do bigger things, but also give us a place to where we can feel like we belong. So, for people listening who may feel disconnected or lonely, what small step would you encourage them to take toward building or finding meaningful community?
Get involved in something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be church. I would encourage anybody to get involved in a faith community myself, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be a book group. It could be a walking group, a group of people it's a walking club.
Yeah.
There are so many different types of community, but get involved and be part of that community and give of yourself and be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and authentic. Don't put a wall in front of yourself. Allow yourself to be real.
And that can be so hard to do.
It can be so hard to do, but in my mind, it's the only way to live.
That's beautiful.
It really is the only way to exist.
Yeah, to have a meaningful and fulfilling life, you must be vulnerable. I love that. So what's bringing you joy or hope right now, whether in your congregation, your personal life, or your creative pursuits?
In my congregation, just working with the people, seeing how they love each other, and doing new things. Edgewood Services, which is in Muskegon, we are working with them right now to offer some activities at the church for senior citizens in the area, and so I find that to be life-giving and rewarding. In my family life, it's all the times when we can have our kids over and our grandkids and spend time with them. Those moments are precious and I'll never get them back. And so I love to experience those moments. And in addition to that, doing music again and having an opportunity to play and perform in ensembles has been life-giving for me. I'm working with a friend of mine who's the former choral director at Reese Puffer High School in Muskegon. And she and I are working on a piece called The Recipe, which is a musical presentation about Julia Child. And so she plays Julia Child and is baking a cake on stage, and I'm playing the piano for this. And we're doing that at White Lake Playhouse this July. It's going to be so much fun. I'm enjoying it so much, and it's pushing me. It's pushing my skill, because having gone into ministry, I did not invest the time in my skill, music skill, that I had prior to that.
Yeah.
That went by the wayside because I simply didn't have time to do it. And so my skills aren't what they had been at one time, but this is pushing me again to get back to where I hopefully was. And working with Regina, it's just going to be so much fun. It's such a joy to be able to do this kind of thing again.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Now, really quick, did you mention that she's going to be baking a cake?
Yes, she does everything about baking a French chocolate cake on stage. All the words she sings, this whole musical, are the words of Julia Child from one of her episodes, her cooking episodes on TV. It's hilarious. It's so much fun.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around that you're performing while also making a cake in real time. On stage.
Yes.
It's like, for me, I'm those people like, I need to be doing one thing at a time. Yes. So I have to come out and see this.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope I do it justice.
I believe you will. It sounds like a lot of love and care and talent. Absolute talent is going into this. So that's kind of like, the next question I had was, are there any upcoming projects, writings, or spaces where listeners can follow your work or connect with you online? We touched on a little bit of that, but is there anything else you'd like to share?
People can contact me through Edgewood Lutheran Church anytime. And if you're interested in what the Lutheran Church has to offer, come visit us sometime.
Absolutely. Well, Ellen, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your heart and your wisdom. Conversations like this remind me why community matters, not just as an idea, but as a living, breathing practice. So for all of our listeners, I encourage you to take something from today's episode and reflect on how you can show up for your community, however big or small. So hey, thank you so much for listening today and being with us here until the end. And again, I just want to thank Ellen for joining today's coffee break.
Well, thank you.
Yes, I also want to encourage anyone who is listening to please feel free to join this conversation here at the coffee table and share your thoughts by sending an email to theoscoffeebreakpodcast@gmail.com. And if you really like being a part of our coffee break sessions, please subscribe and follow and turn those notifications on so you don't miss out on the next episode. I really can't wait to hear from you, sincerely and genuinely, and please know that I'd like to hear your thoughts on what community means to you. And you never know, I just might share your thought during our next coffee break. So have a great day, and don't forget that you will always have a place at my coffee table.